This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. On the day of the wedding, my fiancée was caught in bed with another man. She held the drugged man, crying pitifully, "I just wanted to give my first time to the man I love. What's wrong with that? I don't love you at all. The only person I love is Tony. Tony and I are true love." I was bewildered and shocked. "Sister, the man you're with is married and his wife is pregnant." A few months later, my ex-fiancée came to me, her face full of humiliation. "Please help Tony. In exchange, I'm willing to marry you." I immediately called the psychiatric hospital. "Hello, we have a lunatic here. Please come quickly." When the door opened, a dense, sultry aroma of passion assaulted me. A scream cut through the entire villa as Haley abruptly grabbed a nearby blanket to cover herself. Behind me, there were gasps and noisy exclamations. What's going on? Oh my God. We came to pick up a bride and ended up with this situation, wearing a suit and holding flowers. I quietly watched my bride-to-be naked and in bed with another man, her face flushed. Haley cried bitterly, but still received a slap from her father. Haley's father is named Bame. He founded their family business. Bame pointed at Haley with a trembling finger, his lips turning a bit blue. "Unfilial daughter, you wretched creature. How could I, the esteemed owner of Bame Enterprises, end up with a daughter like you?" Haley covered her beaten face, shouting hoarsely, "I didn't want to marry Rocky. You forced me. I just wanted to give my first time to the man I love. What's wrong with that? I only love Tony. We are the ones in love. Dad, you've always spoiled me. Why force me this time? This is all your fault." Haley's eyes were filled with resentment, piercing into everyone present. Bame clutched his heart, unable to speak for a long time. Haley's mother's hand remained suspended, eventually falling limply. Haley glared at her mother with a stubborn expression. Her mother seemed like a puppet with its strength taken away, mumbling, "Wickedness. It's all wickedness. We spoiled you." Whispers surrounded us, and the gazes of others made Haley feel as if she were being pierced by countless needles, piercing her bones. Haley snapped back to reality. She began to plead with me, trying to get me, the unfortunate one, to speak up for her. "President Rocky, please let me go. I don't love you. I only love Tony." I looked at the absurd and outrageous scenes unfolding before me, my anger surging. My friends and family, my closest brothers, were all witnessing my bride to be cheating right in front of everyone, accusing me of forcing the marriage. I walked step by step to Haley, looking at her weak face, and sarcastically said, "Miss Haley, was this marriage arranged by me? You had countless chances to tell me you didn't want it, but you never said anything. From the engagement to now, 6 months, what have you been doing? Have I forced you? On the wedding day, you pulled off a big stunt, tearing my face off and stepping on it. Miss Haley, you were something else." Haley tried to reach out to pull my sleeve, but I swatted her away. I found her disgusting. "Miss Haley slept with another man before the wedding, and now you want to marry me? Do you want me to be the fool?" I glanced at the man next to her, his expression dazed, seemingly unconscious. Haley, as if wary, quickly covered him a bit more. I couldn't help but sneer. "Miss Haley, why are you still covering him? Who doesn't know this man is Tony?" Just now, Miss Haley loudly declared her true love. "A married man, Miss Haley. You're quite the player." I clapped my hands and threw the flowers onto the bed. "Consider this my wedding gift to Miss Haley." Haley, seemingly furious, shouted at me, "President Rocky, I'm sorry for today's events, but why do you have to humiliate me like this? Moreover, we have no feelings for each other, and we haven't even registered. We definitely won't be happy." She seemed lost in her own emotional world, completely ignoring what her current status should be. She also ignored her mother, who was crying and nearly fainting, and her father, who was so enraged he had started taking medication. Only she, as if she had suffered the greatest injustice. There's nothing more to say to such a person. After all, you can't reason with a lunatic. I turned to Haley's father, who had a grim face. "Bame, I'm waiting for your response about today's events." With that, I turned and prepared to leave. I couldn't stay another moment in the filthy place of Haley's family. With a daughter like this, it's truly absurd. Originally a simple business marriage, meant to elevate the careers of both families, achieving a win-win situation. This is quite common in our circle. But now, I've been unfairly labeled a fool by Haley's family. I won't let this matter rest. I'll just wait to extract an even greater benefit from Haley's family. Rocky. Ignoring Haley's father's attempts to stop me, I unexpectedly saw a woman with blood continuously flowing down her legs. She was pale, tears in her eyes, with a numb expression, holding a phone with what seemed to be a photo. She staggered past me, heading toward the bed, and fainted upon seeing the man. Why are you just standing there? Call an ambulance. The moment Serena collapsed, I caught her and shouted at my friends around me. A week ago, we were still discussing a collaboration project. I had, as usual, inquired about the health of our partner. She smiled and touched her belly. Thank you, President Rocky, for your concern. The baby is very good, and the due date is in March next year. When the baby has its full month celebration, President Rocky must come. But the doctor has advised me to rest in bed for a while. Future collaborations will be followed up by our company's project manager. But when we met again, her husband Tony and my fiancée Haley were in bed together. I became the frustrated man with a green hat in everyone's eyes, while she suffered a miscarriage with severe bleeding. I carried Serena out, her blood continuously soaking my clothes. Sweat droplets appeared on her face, and her expression gradually became twisted with pain. She whispered, "My baby, save my baby." The ambulance whizzed by, and she was sent into the operating room. The cold door closed in front of me, just like I had seen when I was a child. Mom was pushed into the operating room, bleeding. She wailed and cried, begging the doctors to save her child, to save my little sister. Blood spread before my eyes little by little, but in the end, Mom came out of the operating room, lying on the bed. Her face was haggard, and her abdomen was flat. The doctor stood by the bed, sighed. It was a developed female fetus, but unfortunately, I once watched my mother miscarry and lost my sister. Today, I watched helplessly as a partner I admired bled severely. The doctor held a form and looked for someone to sign. The patient had a miscarriage with severe bleeding. Who was the family member? Come sign quickly. I stepped forward and picked up the pen. The family member is not here. I am her friend. I will sign. I wrote my name on it. Rocky. After a while, Serena. A man in a mess ran over from the other end of the hospital, grabbed my collar, and started to question me. Where is Serena? What have you done to Serena? If you have anything, come at me. I punched him to the ground and looked at him mockingly. Tony, Mr. Tony. Isn't this the Tony who was just lying in Haley's bed and having a passionate affair with her? Why do you remember that you have a wife now? Tony tried to get up, and I kicked him again. Having held back my anger for a whole day and having nowhere to vent it, one of the culprits came right to me. I would be sorry for myself if I didn't beat him up. I loosened my tie, threw my coat to a friend nearby, picked Tony up directly and pinned him against the wall, choking his throat tightly. Your name is Tony. Have you ever heard of a word called be cautious with your words and actions? How could you be so careless in doing things? I hit him hard in the face. I had long disliked him for his arrogant look. We are all in the business field. Who is nobler than whom? He always puts on an air of being aloof and indifferent, and even has to ask his wife to handle the contracts while he just bosses people around all day. He wants it all. He really thinks he is so capable. He was like a lump of mud with no strength to fight back. Then Haley came and pulled my arm. President Rocky, please, let him go. It's all my fault. Come at me if you have anything. Don't hit him. When I let go, Tony slid to the ground along the wall. Haley squatted down, touched Tony's face tenderly and carefully. Tony, it's all my fault. Please don't blame me. I just love you too much. Tony pushed her to the ground and shouted in despair. It's all you. If you hadn't drugged me, how could I have slept with you? If anything happens to Serena, I will never let you go. Haley covered her mouth and kept crying. I just felt that my ears would grow calluses and couldn't help cursing. Shut up. Watching these two jerk and bitch performing in front of me was really disgusting. How unlucky I and Serena are to meet these two terrible people. Finally, the light in the operating room went out, and Haley supported Tony and surrounded the doctor. Doctor, how is Serena? I stood behind and watched the doctor sigh. The child didn't make it. By the time I stumbled back home, covered in grime, it was already deep into the night. The living room was brightly lit. Oh dear, what happened to you? Quickly, give me your clothes. The maid hurriedly took my blood-stained coat, with the white shirt underneath also stained red in patches. I sat wearily on the sofa, and my mother handed me a cup of tea. We were silent. I heard the news. The baby didn't make it. My mother was silent for a long time, then sighed slightly for Serena and for herself. We should visit her another day. I've made arrangements for the guests. As for the rest, I won't interfere. You go talk to Haley's family. Since Haley's family is so heartless, we needn't be bound by any obligation. I rubbed my temples, trying to shake off some of the fatigue. Mom, I understand. You rest early. I tried to force a smile smile, but I was too tired and it fell short. "I'm fine, don't worry." She got up and patted me on the back. "If you're feeling bad in front of me, just say so. If there's anything you can't handle, let me deal with it. Don't push yourself too hard." I couldn't help but laugh. Even after all these years, my mom was still my mom. As she reached the staircase, she turned back and said, "There's soup in the pot. Have some and then take a shower and get some sleep. Take a day off tomorrow. The company won't collapse." I kept agreeing. Yes, I'll do as you say. Even if the sky falls, I have you, Mom." She adjusted her shawl and turned to go upstairs, just like before. I stood under the shower, the water washing over me, blood flowing down the drain. But Serena's pale face and her pained cries seemed to have rooted themselves in my mind. In the dead of night, I suddenly woke up, surrounded by patches of red, as if I had returned to my childhood when my mother and that man were arguing, and the man had pushed her down to defend his mistress. Blood had stained the carpet, just like today. I lit a cigarette and stood on the balcony, gazing at the distant night sky. I began to think about how to negotiate with Haley's family, how to extract a piece of flesh from them. Since everything was already ruined, the damaged interest had to be compensated, and beyond that, some extra compensation was also necessary. After all, her parents raised such a wonderful daughter, wasting nearly a year of my time. I considered myself a good husband. Even if there wasn't much love, I would strive to develop affection over time. If not, at least I would respect her and build our home together. I had openly discussed this with Haley before, and she had agreed without objection, gently saying yes. In the end, she just stabbed me in the back. Even if she told me on the eve of the wedding that she didn't like me and wanted to call off the engagement, I would have agreed. At most, it would have been a matter of conflicting interests, but she didn't. She chose the most resolute and foolish way, dragging everyone down with her, exposing her affair with a married man, betraying her fiancé, and making everything public, forcing everyone to acknowledge it and make others pay for her actions, to save face and cover up everything in the end. She was both stupid and evil, breaking off the arranged marriage and trying to force Serena and Tony to divorce. It was a double whammy. Having been pampered for so long, she thought the world should revolve around her. But how could I let her have her way? If she fed me a fly, I would make sure to return a whole house of flies. The next day, I declined offers of comfort from friends and bought a bouquet of flowers to visit Serena. In the early hours, Serena sent me a message asking to meet. Just as I placed the bouquet on the bedside table, someone knocked on the door. Serena smiled apologetically at me. "Please, President Rocky, wait in the adjoining room." I nodded and walked into the adjacent room. The door wasn't fully closed, and I heard Haley's voice. "Serena, I really didn't mean it. My affair with Tony was just an accident. Tony was just too sympathetic to me, which is why Haley, with her familiar whiny tone, was approaching us again. She started with a tone of vulnerability, as if she were the most wronged person in the world. I peered through a small gap and saw Serena adjusting the pillows behind her, sitting up straighter. She spoke with confusion. "So, you were comforted all the way to the bed? Is it that every time Miss Haley needs comfort or sympathy, she ends up in bed with someone? Then I'd better have your Tony check to see if he caught any viruses." Haley, unable to maintain her affected tone, pointed at Serena. "You." Serena remained unfazed, looking at Haley with mockery. "What about me? You have the nerve to interfere in someone else's marriage, to drug people, to send me bed photos, to cuckold your fiancé, and to sleep with another man on your wedding day. With that kind of audacity, Miss Haley, you'd rank among the top in the world." It was then I remembered that the photos I glimpsed on Serena's phone that day were indeed bed photos. No wonder. If it weren't for someone deliberately informing her, she would never have appeared at Haley's house, at most, just at the wedding banquet. Haley didn't act on a whim. She had meticulously planned everything, intending to ruin everyone's reputation that day. For her so-called love, she was willing to sacrifice everything. After being exposed, Haley seemed to give up, no longer trying to maintain her facade. "Tony doesn't love you anymore. The one not loved is the mistress. Tony said if he hadn't met you, he would have loved me. As long as you leave him, he would definitely love me. I have everything. I'm the only child of my parents, and the future of the entire Haley family business will be mine. I can make Tony work fewer years. Compared to me, what are you worth?" Haley, growing more animated, was suddenly slapped by Tony, who had just entered. "Shut up. Who told you to say such nonsense?" Well, the main characters are all gathered now. The ward was really lively early in the morning. You finish, I take the stage. Tony's face was ashen, his anger blazing. If you hadn't drugged me, how would I have ended up in bed with you? It was you who said you wanted to see me one last time before the wedding. That's why I came to see you. I only love Serena. Haley covered her face, looking at Tony in disbelief. Tony, however, knelt on the ground, wholly devoted to Serena. Serena, believe me, it was because she drugged me. That's why I made a mistake. Please forgive me this once. Serena looked at Tony with indifference. Upon hearing this, her expression slowly softened as she stroked Tony's brow. I felt nervous watching from the adjacent room. Surely she wouldn't believe this? Please, I'm a man. I understand men. All that talk about being drugged is just a lie. I almost burst out, wanting to drag Serena away and shout in her ear. Wake up, don't be deceived. Serena said slowly, Tony, let's call the police. Haley drugged you, which involves illegal substances. She slept with you against your will. That's rape. If Haley is arrested by the police, will you forgive me? Serena touched her flat abdomen, her expression bleak. Our baby was lost because of Haley. She sent me photos that triggered my miscarriage. Tears slid down Serena's cheeks. She didn't cry loudly, but made one's heartache nonetheless. Haley continued, desperately trying to explain. Tony, believe me, I didn't do it. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Haley continued to deny it. Tony remained silent, and Serena took his phone, preparing to dial 110. At the moment the call connected, Tony snatched the phone away. Seeing Tony's guilty expression and Haley's provocative smile, Serena wiped away her tears. Tony looked at Serena dryly, nervously speaking. Serena, this is disgraceful and involves too many complications. We can't go straight to the police. It would also affect the company's image. Our company has just started, and it's been our hard work for so many years. Serena's expression was cold, as intimidating as a thicket of thorns. Tony, we've known each other for 10 years and have been married for 3. I know you too well. Were you really drugged? Was it not just you going with the flow? Did you not give Haley any signals of encouragement? She mocked him, calmly tearing apart the unbearable insides bit by bit. It was you who gave her hope. You once told me you didn't like her and that you would make it clear to her, making her leave our lives completely. But you never truly wanted to give up on her, that rope reaching for the sky. With her words, Haley's gaze grew brighter and brighter. She was eager for a definite response. Tony, you love me too, don't you? I knew it. When I fell into the water back then, you risked everything to swim towards me. You didn't save anyone else. You only saved me. I must be different in your eyes. You only can't say you love me because you're married. Your indifference towards me is just a cover for your true feelings. It's okay. I'm willing to wait for you. For you, I can give up anything. She clung to Tony like a vine, tightening bit by bit, sticky and damp, with a cold and eerie presence. Serena left no room for doubt, tearing away the last layer of pretense and also tearing away her own past love. Mr. Rocky, was the show still exciting? After the room fell silent, Serena looked in my direction. I smiled and walked out, applauding. Exciting, absolutely thrilling. In ancient times, we had Zhuge Liang debating with the scholars. Now, we have Miss Serena battling the scum and lowly characters. Serena slightly bowed and acknowledged. Thank you for the compliment. I believe Mr. Rocky already has some thoughts about the cooperation I'm going to discuss. I pulled out a chair that hadn't been tainted by the scum and sat down, replying earnestly, of course, it is my honor to collaborate with Miss Serena. Serena took out a document from beneath her pillow and handed it to me. Following her gesture, I opened it. It was a project proposal, already having a preliminary framework. It was a follow-up version of the collaboration between our company and Tony's company. Some of the technologies inside had been upgraded and innovated. Just from this document, I could glimpse the huge business opportunities hidden within. Tony, oh Tony, you clearly have a brilliant pearl but are still scraping around for a worthless fisheye. This is my sincerity. I'm preparing to bring my team to join Mr. Rocky's company. I just don't know if Mr. Rocky's company is willing to accept us. Of course, we are willing. I was practically beaming with joy. Back when Tony's company first rose to prominence, I had considered making a move. It was only after learning their true relationship that I abandoned the idea of poaching. After all, who doesn't like talent? I extended my hand, warmly welcoming Serena. Welcome, Miss Serena. We're looking forward to having you. I will certainly not disappoint you. After that day, my admiration for Serena grew even more. Decisive, straightforward, and thriving in the sunlight. She is the most captivating woman I've ever met. Setting aside her appearance, her talent, demeanor, and approach to handling things all left me in awe, deeply impressed. rest. From the incident to the decision, even while sick, her willpower was something I secretly admired. Just thinking about having such a person as my future partner instantly refreshed my mood. The recent gloom lifted somewhat. After finalizing the deal, I began drafting the contract. Seeing her tired face, I gently closed the door to the hospital room. She still had a lot to face ahead. Her main task now was to rest and simultaneously distract Tony with divorce and shares, making him spread too thin. Even if Serena did nothing, Haley had already entangled Tony thoroughly. Her public entanglements with other men had been witnessed by many, with some even taking photos on the spot. Even though Haley's family requested the photos be deleted, who knows if they were actually removed? Sure enough, images began circulating online. Hashtag Eris, hashtag new CEO, hashtag wedding infidelity, hashtag passionate HD, hashtag. A few trending keywords together instantly attracted countless eyes. The waves of discussion surged one after another, with some even exposing identities under aliases. Tony's competitors eagerly helped publicize, hoping to ruin him. Once he's finished, his contracts and interests could be reallocated. Leeches swarmed around him, sticking to him, impossible to shake off. The company's reputation suffered, product sales plummeted, and stocks took a nosedive. Watching the daily disastrous scenes, Serena's tone during our chat was increasingly relaxed. Mr. Rocky, Tony plans to seek Haley's family's help. How about Haley's family? Listening to her hint, I understood immediately. I wouldn't give Tony the chance to hitch onto Haley's family, nor would I let Haley's family continue to be in the limelight. In business, like in war, if you can't be friends, you must be enemies. Interest is eternal. When the chain of benefits begins to collapse, it's either I destroy you or you destroy me. Rest assured, I already have plans for Haley's family. They've been on a downward trend for years. BAME has been the sole support. Haley can't take over the company. She's just a useless person. She's never been properly trained from the start. BAME originally intended to nurture the next generation, but now BAME might have to rethink. Haley's reputation is completely ruined. Influential families naturally won't want her. As for Tony, he harbors malicious intentions. If BAME chooses him, I think Haley's family business truly has no hope. Serena smiled faintly, and I could almost imagine her radiant expression like the summer sun. Then I'm relieved. Please continue to work hard, Mr. Rocky. I, as an idle person, will just wait for good news. Reluctantly ending the call, I immersed myself back into work. Taking advantage of the stock market crash, I could collaborate with other companies to completely bring Tony down. As for Haley's family, the funds on the company's account had long been invested in projects, and they couldn't come up with such liquidity in the short term. Not to mention the compensation they owe my company due to breach of contract. Haley's family was like a lion at dusk. Originally, they were waiting for a chance to revive, but had already completely ruined their opportunity. After Serena's body gradually recovered, she couldn't wait to leave Tony's company completely. Her team also followed her to my company. I had already prepared the contract with more generous conditions. I have always been generous towards talents. I showed Serena around her new office, which was spacious and bright. In the corner, there were several evergreen plants, adding some vitality and hoping to make her feel better. After walking around, Serena nodded satisfactorily. Thank you, President Rocky. I like it very much. Looking at the smile on her lips, I also relaxed a bit. Many things here were added by me slowly. I'm glad you like it. Then I won't disturb you. I look forward to our cooperation. I left Serena's office, thinking that this pearl was now in my territory. My mood soared, and I felt that I could have another day of meetings. In the evening, the sunset gradually dyed the whole sky, and the phone next to me rang desperately. Rocky, what time is it? Why haven't you come yet? We're all waiting for you. Are you tired of working every day? Come out and have fun. Isn't it just being cheated on? It's nothing. I was even cheated on during my marriage. Peter shouted at the other end of the phone. I smiled helplessly. Wait for me. I'll be there soon. Just then, the assistant pushed open the office door anxiously. President Rocky, something happened downstairs. Serena is being entangled by a man, and many people are watching. The security is maintaining order, and that man keeps mentioning you. The assistant's face looked embarrassed, and I could imagine it wasn't something good. Probably just bringing up what happened to me that day. Haven't I received enough strange looks these days? Mocking, sympathetic, comforting. There were waves of people watching but they still had to put on a hypocritical appearance in front of me. When I got downstairs, the crowd had dispersed a bit. Tony looked at Serena with hatred and kept shouting, Serena, after all these years with you, you actually stabbed me in the back. Did you hook up with him long ago? You bitch. I always felt guilty towards you. I love you so much. How could you treat me like this? The man man who was still a bit dignified a few months ago was now like a mad dog, with bloodshot eyes, already like a stray dog. Serena was blocked behind by the crowd. Her expression was cold, but she couldn't hide her disappointment. Facing her former lover, she still felt sad. Even though she had made up her mind, the years she had spent and experienced were not so easily cut off. When Tony saw me, he became even more excited and even wanted to rush to me immediately. I smiled and walked towards him. "Mr. Tony, why aren't you in the police station with your Miss Haley? I heard that when you were taken away, you were particularly embarrassed." I pretended to be surprised and looked at Tony up and down. I was wrong. Mr. Tony was taken away as a victim. After all, Mr. Tony was the one who was drugged and raped. I signaled the security to let Tony go. "Don't be so rude. Mr. Tony has just suffered a major trauma, physically and mentally." He inexplicably overflowed with sympathy to keep an appointment with a prospective bride, saying he wanted to accompany her for the last part of the way, but ended up being drugged and forced into bed. His innocence is gone, and he was seen by everyone. The photos were even put online. It's really sad to hear and heartbreaking to see. Everyone mustn't search for it online. Don't search for the protagonists Tony and Haley. Don't cause them secondary harm. For such a person, of course, I would poke where it hurts. Anyway, I am the victim. After this incident, some people sympathized with me, and some people thought I was cuckolded, but it was basically positive. As long as I got over this hurdle in my heart, I could use this as a weapon to attack the enemy. Serena gradually calmed down, pushed the security aside calmly, walked up to Tony, and slapped him 4 times in his astonished expression. "The first one is for my child. The second one is for myself. The third one is for our years of friendship. The fourth one is for the insult you gave me and President Rocky today." Her expression was somewhat sad. "Tony, not everyone is as despicable as you. Don't think the world is like you. You are dirty, so you see everything is dirty. The passionate you I met at the beginning, how have you become so unrecognizable now? Don't you have enough?" Tony's hostility was completely dispersed. "Serena, I'm wrong. I just care about you too much. I beg you, will you come back with me? I will really change. I've made it clear to Haley. I've completely broken off with her. I was blinded by lard before." Serena took a few steps back, farther away from him. "I don't believe it. Cheating happens once and countless times. I don't want to experience those late-night text messages, ambiguous traces, and flirtatious words between you and Haley anymore. Remember when we just started our business, you pushed me out to drink and negotiate contracts. I tried to understand you. You were looked down upon when you just entered society, and you were sad, so you wanted to escape. But when you hooked up with Haley for the sake of interests and slept with her, I couldn't understand you. You shouldn't climb up like this. Don't come to me anymore. I won't see you." Serena turned and entered the building. I stood in front of Tony, completely blocking his view of Serena. Serena, I did all this for you, for our child. I just don't want to be sneered at and looked down upon anymore. What's wrong with me? Do you think I want this? What's the difference between me now and running naked on the street? Everyone is laughing at me. Even you don't understand me." Looking at his decadent appearance, I felt extremely happy. "Tony, I advise you to go and accompany your Miss Haley. Be careful not to end up with nothing. It would be best if he could firmly bewitch Haley. Stupid people are easier to deal with." With Serena's departure, the few onlookers also gradually dispersed, leaving only a mess of Tony. He thought too beautifully, but how could reality be as he wished? He wanted both the fish and the bear's paw, one at home and one outside. How beautiful he thought it was. I really wanted to slap him twice. Tony's company was about to go bankrupt, and Serena's job hopping to me was another blow to his fragile nerves. He couldn't find Serena's location at all, and could only block her downstairs at the company. Then he personally created a farce, pushing Serena even farther away. I handed a cup of tea to Serena and silently muted my phone. The continuous calls were about to explode my phone. Without looking, it must be Peter. Serena's complexion had recovered somewhat, but she still wore a thick autumn coat, even though it was only early autumn. She gazed out at the falling leaves, and I asked her, "This company was once your hard work. Aren't you a bit sad?" She had once maneuvered tirelessly for a collaboration proposal, even working tirelessly despite being pregnant. Her dedication to that company was no less than Tony's. She continued to look out the window before turning to me, a hint of a smile appearing on her flushed face. "Mr. Rocky, have you ever read novels?" I was puzzled by her question. She didn't expect me to answer and continued on her own. "There was a time I was particularly obsessed with novels, enjoying the love stories between the male and female leads. I read all kinds, sweet, pampered, and tortured love. There's one type of novel where the female lead drugs the male lead. The male lead doesn't love the female lead but loves another woman. Yet in the end, the male lead always ends up loving the female lead, creating a dramatic pursuit of the female lead, while the other woman faces a miserable end. Meanwhile, the second male lead stays loyal to the female lead. Listening to Serena's description, I couldn't help but frown. What kind of bizarre story is this? Drugging someone because you love them? Then a funeral pyre scenario. Doesn't that mean someone's dead? And isn't drugging someone supposed to land you in jail? Haley, in any case, had been taken in. With Serena and my investigation, we successfully identified the source of the drugs provided to Haley and shut down the operation. We were also awarded the Good Citizen Award. Unfortunately, Tony refused to admit he was drugged and assaulted by Haley, so we couldn't charge him with multiple crimes. It was only recognized as mutual infidelity. But this was a solid, written document that significantly helped Serena in her divorce, serving as concrete evidence in court. Thinking of Tony's expression back then made me want to laugh. His face was green with envy. Serena handed me a book from her bag, the cover colorful, *The Overbearing CEO's Escaping Little Wife*. Mr. Rocky, you might want to read this when you have time, just for entertainment. I suddenly felt that I was like the second female lead in this story, and Tony was that indecisive idiot of a male lead. Fortunately, Mr. Rocky, you're not that stupid second male lead. I raised my eyebrows, puzzled by her thoughts. It's obvious that those two are the real idiots. We'll win in the end. She took a sip of the warm water in front of her and didn't say more, just wrapped herself tighter in her clothes. It seemed like it was time to get some warm gifts. My mom's heating gadgets are quite good. I could get Serena one, and also the high-end massage foot bath. I should ask my mom for a link. Maybe I should just buy everything my mom uses. She tests and selects them herself, so the quality is guaranteed. I thought to myself, planning to return home early tonight to buy these things. Looking at Serena's pale face, I thought she should eat more and get some nourishment. She used to have a bit more flesh on her face. It's better to deal with Tony and Haley quickly. Once they are taken care of, Serena might feel happier. No one will disturb her life anymore. As the autumn wind picked up and the weather turned cooler, it was time for Haley's family and Tony to meet their end. By the time I took Serena home and then headed to the bar, 2 hours had passed. Peter rushed over as soon as he saw me and gave me a bear hug. Bro, don't say anything. I understand you. His tone was sorrowful, but anyone with eyes could see his grin stretching from ear to ear. Haley cheating on Tony was the best news for him. I pushed him away in disgust, the smell of alcohol overwhelming. Peter, however, stuck to me like a sticky plaster. Don't reject my warm care. He pointed at everyone, proudly patting his chest. Rocky, I dare say, among everyone here, I understand you the most. It's just being cheated on. It's nothing to be ashamed of. They're the ones with poor taste. A pig can't eat fine food. The more he spoke, the more absurd he became. I frowned and dragged him aside. If you want to be the pig food, go ahead. I'm not. Besides, my embarrassment is just a commercial marriage. What does that compare to you? You pursued her with deep affection, and as soon as she stood with her first love, you were immediately kicked out. Peter spat out a mouthful of blood, barely able to stand. Heartbreaking, bro. I ignored his antics and sat down. A buddy handed me a drink. Don't mind him. He's always been like this. This time, I want to thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to get that piece of land. Now, Haley's family has practically handed over that land. I've gained a huge advantage. Bro, I toast to you. From now on, if you need anything, just let me know. I'll risk my life for you. I clinked glasses with him and drank it all. Good things are of course for those close to me. Dividing the cake, I first take care of my brothers. Fighting Haley's family alone is tough, but with a crowd, it's a different story. Even if Haley's family were an elephant, they would be crushed, let alone just a skinny camel. In high spirits, Peter leaned closer and started gossiping. Rocky, what about Miss Serena? Seeing his winking expression, I knew he had ulterior motives. I swirled my drink without saying a word. If you like her, go for it. After all, she's divorced. Close water tower gets the moon first. If only it were that simple. Initial admiration, followed by deep care and respect, gradually transformed into an indescribable affection through our interactions. In her eyes, I was merely a business partner, but in my eyes, she was the most beautiful summer. Luckily, summer now falls on my territory. I must be careful and plan meticulously. The priority is to clear all obstacles between us. Then, as a friend, gradually infiltrate into her life. Tonight, I'll start by reading the book she gave me to understand her hobbies. In the dead of night, I was still reading the novel Serena had given me, my brow furrowing so tightly it could squash a Haley. What is this thing? Serena used to read this kind of stuff? Isn't this Haley's typical reading material? Drugging someone to have sex, that's a real portrayal of Haley's foolish life. As for the male lead who must marry the idiotic female lead, but still wants to be with the second female lead, he's just like Tony. It's true what they say, novels are born from reality and surpass it. At least in reality, Tony is someone who tries to climb the ranks using women, but his abilities are so poor that my plan proceeds so smoothly. With a high self-view and a seductive face, he manages to mesmerize Haley. The successful outcome of the plan is being blocked at Haley's doorstep. The weather was slightly cold. She was wearing a short, Chanel-style skirt, shivering a little, with a hint of redness on her pale face. When I appeared, a gust of wind blew, causing her to shiver even more. She moved closer to me, tears falling freely, but I had long known her true nature and felt only disgust. Rocky, I am willing to marry you. I only ask one thing, help Tony. His company is on the brink of bankruptcy. He is truly out of options. I know you are targeting him because of me. I promise if you help him, I will never see him again. I will definitely be good to you. Her expression was one of pain, as if she had endured great grievances and humiliation. Is marrying me such an unbearable thing? I am wealthy, good-looking, fit, and successful, with an 8-pack abs. Those who pursue me line up from my doorstep to the office. Why would I marry a woman of questionable character, with a scheming mind, and who has even been to jail? I abruptly stepped back, afraid she might throw herself into my arms. Haley didn't reach me and fell heavily onto the stone ground. The sound alone was painful. She deserved it. Carrying her own viruses, she still wanted to infect others. Miss Haley, you really overestimate yourself. What are you? Why do you think I would want you? I'm not a trash can. She sat on the ground, crying softly, still trying to pose. I was getting goosebumps. Rocky, I know I hurt you before. I will change in the future. I took out my phone and called the mental hospital. Hello, there is a lunatic here. Please come quickly. Galaxy Community, number 13. Haley watched me dial the number seriously, her face gradually showing shock. I was the one who was shocked. Thinking of dining with her before, seeing her normal appearance gave me chills now. Before the mental hospital's car arrived, she left, delayed by her. I decided to go to the office later and directly check the surveillance footage from the front of my house. Serena would be very pleased with Haley's performance. I wouldn't miss any chance to please the one I care about. As expected, Serena soon sent me a hilarious seal meme, laughing so hard it hurt my stomach. Mr. Rocky's sarcasm is getting worse. I love it. Looking at the 2 lines on the screen, I silently took a screenshot and saved it. After thinking for a moment, I took another screenshot, saving just those 3 words. The weather was slightly cold, and she was wearing a Chanel-style short skirt, shivering slightly, with a hint of redness on her fair face. When I arrived, a gust of wind blew, causing her to shiver even more. She approached me, her tears falling as they pleased, but I had long known her true nature and felt nothing but disgust. Rocky, I'm willing to marry you. Please help Tony. His company is about to go bankrupt. He really has no way out. I know you're targeting him all because of me. I promise if you help him, I will never see him again. I will be with you wholeheartedly. Her expression was one of pain, as if she had endured immense grievance and humiliation. Is marrying me such an unbearable thing? I have wealth, looks, and a good physique. Young and accomplished with an 8-pack. People line up from my door to my company to pursue me. Am I out of my mind to marry a woman of poor character, with malicious schemes and a criminal record? I suddenly took a step back, fearing she might throw herself into my arms. Haley didn't reach me, falling heavily onto the stone floor with a painful thud. She deserved it. She's covered in viruses and still wants to infect others. Miss Haley, you're overestimating yourself. What makes you think I would want you? I'm not a trash bin. She sat on the ground, crying and still trying to strike poses, making my skin crawl. Rocky, I know I hurt you before. I will change in the future. I took out my phone and dialed the mental hospital's number. Hello, there's a lunatic here. Please come quickly. Galaxy Community, number 13. Haley watched me make the call with a serious face, gradually showing a look of shock. I'm the one who should be shocked. Thinking back to the times I used to date her, seeing her as a normal person gives me goosebumps in the middle of the night. Before the mental hospital's vehicle arrived, she left. Being delayed by her, I decided to go to the company later and directly check the surveillance footage at my doorstep. Serena would definitely be delighted after seeing Haley's performance, not missing a chance to please the person I care about. Sure enough, Serena quickly sent me a hilarious seal image, making me laugh until my stomach hurt. Rocky, the president, is even more sharp-tongued. I love it. Looking at the 2 lines of text on the screen, I silently took a screenshot and saved it. After thinking for a moment, I took another screenshot, keeping just those 3 words. Under my relentless assault, the Haley family was now beyond redemption. I had seized many of Haley's business deals. It didn't matter if I couldn't use them all myself. Everyone enjoys the meat and soup when shared, distributing them to my brothers, who wouldn't like it. With the backing of benefits, the work gets done with even greater dedication. The Haley family and I have long been archenemies. If I don't destroy them, I can't sleep peacefully. Bame, with his shameless old face, came to see me, trying to use the last of his benefits to move me. Rocky, I watched you grow up. Back when your father was still alive, he and I often talked about you. Still bringing up that man? That man's ashes have long been scattered by me. Don't bring him up if you have nothing useful to say. Rocky, you are a smart child. I came to see you today, and I believe you understand. Ruyan is not inherently bad. She was just misled at the time. To me, you are the most suitable choice. Unfortunately, fate is unkind. But if you're willing, the Haley family is willing to provide a dowry for Ruyan. I directly interrupted Bame's elder-like conversation, realizing he still wanted me to be the fool. I took out a document from my office drawer. President Bame, perhaps you should review this first. I smiled as I handed it to him. He took the document and began to peruse it page by page. I waited patiently. It contained photos of Haley entering and exiting a hospital, specifically the obstetrics and gynecology department. She was pregnant, naturally, with Tony's child. The day she came to see me, she wanted to marry me and have me raise another man's child. Am I that easy to bully? Is my face written with fool in bold letters? Why do they keep targeting me? In a few decades, they'd stage a family recognition drama. I'd better drop dead on the spot, with Haley happily rushing into Tony's arms with my fortune. How can they think so? Do they dream so much that they can't distinguish dreams from reality? A bunch of idiots. Rocky, I truly didn't know about this. Rest assured, I will ensure she aborts the child. The Haley family will not accept such a bastard. Bame spoke with great conviction, but he's just another fox in the business world. Who would believe him? I don't care if he's informed or not. I just find his dying struggles too tedious. Facing the inevitable end, it's better to accept it. After all, he once devoured other companies himself. Acquisition, restructuring, bankruptcy, and resurgence. This is the most common scenario. I politely saw him out and instructed my assistant not to respond to any more of his invitations. Standing in the high building, I watched him, supported by my assistant, walk to the company entrance. Tony had been waiting there, got slapped by him, but still bowed humbly, waiting for him to get in the car. If Tony hadn't been so ambitious back then, trying to leap to success in one go, he might have been securely sitting as a new tech company tycoon with Serena's support, instead of his current. Rocky, I truly didn't know about this matter. Don't worry, I will make sure she terminates the pregnancy. The Haley family won't accept such a bastard. Bame spoke with great assurance, but he's just another fox in the business world. Who would believe him? I don't care if he's informed or not. I just find his desperate struggles too tedious. Facing the inevitable outcome, it's better to accept it. After all, he had once devoured other companies himself. Acquisition, restructuring, bankruptcy, and resurgence. This is the most common scenario. I politely saw him out and instructed my assistant not to respond to any more of his invitations. Standing in the high building, I watched him, supported by my assistant, walk to the company entrance. Tony had been waiting there, received a slap from him, but still bowed humbly, waiting for him to get in the car. If Tony hadn't been so ambitious back then, trying to leap to success in one go, he might have already been securely positioned as a rising star in the tech industry with Serena's support. Instead of being in his current state, bankrupt and reduced to a stray dog, only able to rely on others. After watching them leave, I turned back to my desk to resume work. A true overlord spends day after day in the office, attending meetings, reading documents, and traveling non-stop. I'm beginning to miss the days when my mother hadn't fully retired. If she knew what I was thinking, she would certainly say I was unfilial. Tony entered Haley's house and became her nominal husband. Haley's family spent a fortune trying to clear the original public opinion. They were like fish caught in a net, still struggling even until the end. But my fishnet is surrounded by a layer of steel wire. No matter how hard you struggle, what's the use? Looking at the tourist photos Serena sent, I felt a pang of longing. She had already been away from the city for a month. Tony's entanglement had made her weary, and with her work coming to a close, I agreed to give her an extended vacation. She was like a traveling frog, sending postcards and souvenirs from every place she visited, accompanied by a few typical tourist photos. In one photo, her face was covered up, only her eyes and eyebrows were visible, smiling boldly and exuberantly. My mom always smiled with delight upon receiving gifts, and they seemed to hit it off instantly, becoming confidants. Fortunately, there was no mention of a sworn sisterhood. Thinking back to how they almost had a scene of worshipping Guangdong, I was somewhat apprehensive. I wanted my mom to get along with her, but I didn't want an unrelated aunt added to my family. I sent a sighing panda emoji. She quickly replied, "After things settle, welcome CEO Rocky to the seaside. I've explored everywhere here. When the time comes, I'll be your tour guide." The waves surged layer by layer, calming the inner restlessness. I paused for a long time and typed a few words. "All right, it's a deal." I lowered my head and buried myself in work. The tasks were in the final stages, leaving no room for error. The bankruptcy and liquidation of Haley's family were a foregone conclusion, but until the very last moment, I still couldn't relax. After the incident, Haley's family tried to use their remaining influence and connections to force us to swallow everything. But times have changed. This is no longer the era of his BAME. Wrongdoings must come with a price. To avoid paying any price and merely relying on the connections of the elders to coerce the younger generation is too ridiculous. Moreover, the father he spoke of was, in my mind, a being inferior to even muck. It's really too self-righteous. I want to trample Tony down, and Haley's family will certainly be the stepping stones along my way. Against enemies, one must be ruthless like the autumn wind sweeping fallen leaves. Otherwise, one day, I'll be the obstacle and whetstone on Tony and Haley's path. When the moment of declaring bankruptcy came, everything settled. I specially chose an excellent vantage point to capture their expressions and record everything. Once they trampled on others' dignity and betrayed and humiliated wantonly, did they ever consider that they too might one day be trampled into the mire? It's easy to go from frugality to luxury, but hard to go from luxury to frugality. I look forward to their future lives with great anticipation. The so-called love that needs to be obtained with a price. How far can it go without material support? Those who once aspired to reach the sky in one step now have fallen to a position even lower than before. Are they filled with regret? This lowly couple is truly interesting. I withdrew my gaze. After all, I still have important matters to attend to. I've waited too long. Looking at the encouraging text from my mom, I couldn't help but laugh. She wished she could wave flags and personally step in, but as for romance, let me handle it myself. With the azure sea and blue sky, I approached a lady lying on a beach chair and politely asked, "Hello, I'm new here. Could you be my tour guide?" The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.